After
on
you
as
graduated,
well.
you know, like looking back.
And it's only 5 minutes I can speak about it. What it is this. It's the trailer it takes place in Albania, in Tirana, where I'm in a church, and here I am in a church, a Jew in a church praying in Arabic. And then it goes on from there and shows some of the people and some of the people that we photographed and invites you, if you will, to see the full-length documentary when it comes on. Let me tell you a little bit about myself and who I am. I'm, needless to say, I'm from the States. Stu Huck, my close friend and associate, has been with me on this journey for the past 7 years of going back to Albania, traveling all through Albania, as well as in Kosovo, and seeking out those families, predominantly Muslim families that saved Jews in World War II. I want to say something as well, that if we met 10 families, 7 would be Muslim and 3 would either be Orthodox or Catholic. But we chose to focus on Muslims because in the times we live in, who ever heard of a Muslim saving a Jew? Certainly not in the United States. And that's what we did. And my background as well, clearly I'm Jewish, but I've also studied for years with the Sufis. And to me, through the Sufis of beauty and dance and poetry, what I read in the newspapers, I don't understand. Talk about Muslim terrorists, it's crazy. I often say that you know, if just like as an example, all Christians are crusaders, and all Jews are moneylenders, and all Muslims are terrorists. It's nuts. It's crazy. It really is nuts. And as I said, we traveled often to Albania and to seek out these families. The story started at Yad Vashem, which is the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem, where we were allowed into the archives, and I found maybe 30, 35 families, but in some cases you could tell if it was a Muslim family, in some cases you couldn't. But being in Israel, they introduced us, Yad Vashem, to an organization called the Israeli Albanian Friendship Society, and these are Jewish families that were saved in Albania. They in turn introduced us to an organization, a small organization in Albania called the Albanian Israeli Friendship Association. And they knew of many more families that saved Jews that were known to Yad Vashem. And the reason was primarily after World War II, there was a vicious, crazy, paranoid communist regime where all contact between the rescuers and rescued were broken. And most of the Jews left to go either to their other country, but primarily to Israel. Those that stayed, and there were some that stayed, were stuck for well over 50 some odd years, couldn't get out. And again, going back again, I am a photographer. I live in a town called Besa, Colorado, which is about 15, 18 miles down Valley from Aspen. But I'm not a landscape photographer. I don't photograph mountains and flowers and stuff like that. I just don't do it. Others do that. Stu is a fine landscape photographer. I photograph people. And I don't walk around with my camera just snapping pictures. I do it with purpose. I've done a lot of work prior to this. Is a 7-year project. This is probably the most important thing I've ever done. But I've done a lot of work in the former Soviet Union, as an example. And my stuff is in museums all over the world. In Cuba, where there's this tension, where there's a disconnect, that interests me a lot. And I photograph people because people are people. Everyone is. I photograph good people. I'm not interested in rapes and murders and killings and crap like that. You see enough of that in the newspapers. That's not what I'm about. So what I would like to do now is we'll flash some of the pictures on screen from the book.
You've got the movie. Look at the movie's worth something.
Oh, you got the movie now. All right. You want to see the movie? All right, go.
Here's a Jew in a Christian chapel praying in Arabic. It's a prayer of hope. We call it different names, but there is only one God. It's completing the circle of Christians and Jews and Muslims. Because that's the purpose of this whole project, is about good people, whether they're Muslims or whether they're Jews. And that's what I photograph, good people.
Feja jonë është muslimane. Edhe u mundin që ti përën të njerëz. Në fakt nga rritëm qëllimit. Në përkën.
There were moments of great danger. We were Jews, we are Jews. We were protected by them in Albania. A stranger in your house is to be protected at all costs.
Kjo është Besa. Hajde këtu, jemi në orë teme.
How many people would lay their lives down for a stranger?
Got it.
Albanians would. Hello, I'm Norman Gershman. Great to meet you. Your family rescued this Jewish family under the Nazis. You're Muslims, is that correct?
Yeah.
Ukrainians saved Jews, Poles saved Jews, French saved Jews, and many people saved Jews. Muslims? What are you, crazy?
Yeah.
Our way, with our pictures, we are telling a story that's never been told. These Muslim people in a small little country did something miraculous.
Emri im është Recep Hoxha. Babai se ishte djali një imami. Babai vetëm dëshironte që për hebrejt të kryente veprimin që I mbeti si kështu pa realizuar.
These are the prayer books used at the most important Jewish holidays. It reads, "This is the entrance to the Lord, may the righteous come on in."
Everybody knew that we were Jews, and nobody ever made an issue of it or denounced us.
Edhe në kulturën tonë, themi kur t'jepet një amanet, që thuhet një detyrim, Besa është edhe tek kjo, tek fjala e dhënë.
Here he is questioning, what are these books and where are the people? It's their heirloom. The journey was almost a year to find this Jewish family.
Lama e aurim shilia suet në dëvarazi. Zemena kjerli aga jo.
They met Aaron Edgen. The guy is hard to get because he never spoke about the period.
60 years he's got these books, but they must be returned.
Kur një njeri jeton gjatë me këtë ide dhe ka që erdhi u afruam zgjidhje. U afruam drejt zgjidhjes besoj. Është shumë e bukur.
What I have learned about Albania is your greatest export is not fish, it's not metal, it is Besa. This message of Besa is so needed in the world. I defy anybody to say these people are terrorists or terrorist sympathizers. They're righteous people. There's anonymous rescuers. They risked everything. They're forgotten. If I can get the remnant of a story, it has to live. That's a testament to the goodness of people.
I also want to introduce Melinda Murtone. Melinda is a director, one of the directors of our foundation, and also is Albanian. Her father-in-law and grandfather-in-law both are righteous as defined by Hashem. Any rate, what we'll do now is are any other Albanians in here? You know, most people don't even know where the hell it is. It's a little country right across the Adriatic from Italy. Maybe 7 million people. That's about it. Oh, there it is. Yes, yeah. And
Next one.
yeah, next one. And again, as I said before, that the story began at Yad Vashem. Yad Vashem, again, the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem, where they honor those Gentiles, non-Jews that saved Jews in World War II, where there has to be documentation. Yes, this family in such this period saved my life, my family, and they are then honored by becoming righteous among the nations. There are roughly about 25,000 righteous people who have been named as righteous. Roughly about 1,700 are still alive. Okay. And of course, this is the cover of the book, and we can go to the next. The story can start and end with this picture. He is the Baba. He is the head of the Bektashi. The Bektashi are any Bektashis here? This is a liberal form of Shiites. There are roughly about 7-8 million Bektashi in the world, and there are Bektashi centers as well as in the United States. And roughly of the 70% of Albanians that are Muslim, roughly 50%, maybe slightly less, are Bektashi. Very liberal and very wonderful people. They originally started, the center was in Turkey, and they were kicked out of Turkey by Ataturk in the 20s because they refused to take off their religious garb. And he tells a story, the Baba, and the center now is in Tirana. There's the Bektashi Center, the World Center. At the time of the Nazi occupation, Germans, there was the prime minister, I believe, was a Bektashi. And the Germans said, tell us where your Jews are. And he said, we don't know where their Jews are, we only know Albanians. But he sent out a secret message to the Bektashi that the Jewish children will eat the same food as your children. The Jewish children will sleep in the same beds as your children. The Jewish children will be your family. And then I'm going to quote a little bit more from the Baba. We Bektashi see God everywhere in everyone. God is in every pore and every cell. Therefore, all are God's children. There cannot be infidels. There cannot be discrimination. If one sees a good face, one is seeing the face of God. God is beauty. Beauty is God. There is no God but God. I might add that under the communist system, the Baba spent 19 years in prison for being a religious man. some people call her the Madonna. It's interesting in Albania. It's not exactly a friendly tourist place, and especially when we first started on trips, and we couldn't make it up the mountain to where she lived. So the car broke down. I actually did it, and we just grabbed our gear and hiked up, and we didn't know. We didn't even know who, we thought we would meet the sun, but there she was. And she was a wonderful, wonderful old lady, and she's holding the Quran, and I actually put a glass, it was my fault, a glass of Rocky, which is that rot gut. It's awful stuff. And, it was low light, and we took her picture, and the whole town, the whole village, all said Jews. The prefect, the police state, everybody knew. Jews, it wasn't that you must save Jews. No. It's something that it's a given. It would be inconceivable to turn away someone in need. At any rate, she says this. It was not until 1990, 45 years later, that Shlomo and Mordecai Lazar made contact with us from Israel. All of us villagers were Muslims. We were sheltering God's children under our Besa. I might add, I'm not giving you their names because the Albanian names are, some of them even begin with the letter X. So forgive me. And as I said, these are all excerpts. This is a family, and here again, it was so difficult to get to their home, way the heck out in the middle of nowhere. And on one little rocky road, God forbid another car would be coming the other way. At any rate, he saved this Jewish family, and the Jewish family, they had hidden some gold in a tree, and they offered it to him, and he refused. And he says this: "We have been a family of Muslims for 500 years. Besa came from the Quran. The Jews and Muslims of Albania are cousins." Now let's talk a little bit about Besa and the Quran. You won't find Besa, the word Besa, in the Quran. You won't. And traditional academicians would say, well, Besa is thousands of years old, which it is, and it no relation to the Quran. In practice, it is. And the families we met incorporated Besa into and inspired them, if you will, to save those in need. So one family actually said there is no Besa without the Quran. There's no Quran without Besa. Well, I'd just say one other thing. One other thing I want to say about this family. We have been a family of Muslims for 500 years. Besa came from the Quran. The Jews and Muslims of Albania are cousins. We bury our dead as Jews do in coffins. I know what I'm saying. This was taken in the town of Berat. What happened in Berat in Albania, when the Italians capitulated to the Allies in 1943, many of them left, but many of them were stuck, if you will, in Albania. Anyway, some of the Albanian soldiers in trucks literally dumped Jews in this one town, in Berat, and they were walking around. They were all taken in by different families. But then there was a time when it became very dangerous. The Nazis were going from door to door looking for partisans, primarily looking for Jews, and the Jewish. And this is what I'm excerpting from the story. The Jewish children began crying because they did not want to leave Berat. They asked, "Isn't there any other Berat where we can go?" One of the resistance fighters reassured them by saying, "Berat is everywhere. because wherever you go in Albania, the Albanians are there to protect you. I think he was a royalist. His home was a way station in Tirana, where they then transported those Jews into the countryside, where they were protected. Our entire family was involved in fighting fascists. Our house became a safe house and a major staging area for Jews seeking help. We never sought reward. During the war, you had the partisans were primarily communists fighting the fascists. You had the royalists wanting under King Zog, who had to flee when Italy invaded, and you had the Democrats. They all were fighting the Nazis. They were all fighting each other, and they all saved Jews. Again, it was so difficult. We had to schlep, up to get to his home. And he is an imam, and he comes from a long history of imams. He studied in Egypt, as I recall. And he kept a diary. He had a diary of those years, and I think this family, they saved 30 some odd several Jewish families, totally maybe 30, 35 people. These memories come alive as I read from our family history, and that's what he's doing. He's reading from his diary. Our generation has a special feeling for the Jewish people. Our father wrote that when he had the opportunity and the privilege to shelter so many Jewish families, it gave him joy to practice his Islamic faith. Rather than just read it, he practiced. To be generous is a virtue. Yeah. Her husband had died about 2 weeks before we came into our home, and she was very distraught, but we got her talking, we got her laughing, we got her loose, and she was just wonderful, and smoked, kept smoking, right, one cigarette after another. And they actually had another home where they were sheltering Jews, and her home and another home as well. She didn't even know how many. And as Muslims, we welcome them all. We welcome them with bread, salt, and our hearts. I love this place. Okay. These are cousins, and their fathers were twins, actually shoemakers, as I recall. And they had sheltered this one particular family, and they were so proud of it, that they put this sign up where the Adidja's family, the Jewish family, drank their water from this well. And that's the sign, it's in Albanian. And they say, we sheltered the Adidja's family out of the goodness of our hearts. We are all brothers and proud of our heritage. If need be, we would do it again, and they would. Again, we'll have time to, answer any questions you may have. I'm sure you will. This is an amazing story. My father and his entire family were very kind people. It is hard to believe, but my father gave the clothing business to Nissan, accepting no compensation. Didn't know, gave him the business. Here's the business. We were happy that now he was the owner. Nason wrote to us after the war, if I had wings to fly, I would come and kiss the sainted Albanian land which saved our lives. I can't remember an easy place we went. Remember this? There were hiding Jews on the side of a mountain. It was so mountainous that the Nazi soldiers never bothered to come down. It was too dangerous for them. And there was quite a number of people that they had in this big house. We never took money from those we sheltered. We took them under our Besa. We are true Muslims, and God granted us the privilege of saving Jews. All life is precious and given by God. To save a life is God's gift. I might add also that during World War II, there were only 2 countries in Europe that did not cooperate with the Nazis. It was Denmark and Albania. And even there was a difference. I'm not denigrating Denmark. But in Albania, they were treated as honored guests. They were taken in, they were given false passports, usually with Muslim names, dressed in Muslim garb, and everybody in the village knew. Everybody, nobody would dare, if you will, to turn them in. And there's no evidence of any Jew being turned over to Nazis in Albania. No evidence whatever. And it's a small story, but it's a big story. There were 10 times more Jews in Albania after the war than before the war. I'll stay with this one. Again, we went to this little house. I mean, it really was. We said, "What are we doing here?" But they were wonderful with these are 2 brothers, and their father was a milkman, and they took in this Jewish family, and they made cheese and what. You can't hear me? Okay. Anyway, and then as I recall, then they transported the Jews to the border, and they made it to Italy, as I recall. They had then been liberated. We are religious Muslims. Our family has never sought recognition for saving Jews. To do good is to get good from God. And again, that message of Besa. She told us wonderful stories. There was a brother and sister that lived, two Jewish kids that lived with her in her bedroom, and they were fast friends. Needless to say, they couldn't go out, but she did correspond with them. How she did, I'll never know. Especially in the communists. She actually became the head of the Albanian Israeli Friendship Association. And she was a wonderful person. There's a word in Yiddish also, she's kvelling, with these letters from this brother and sister that are now living in Israel. And she was so happy of their relationship, under the Nazis, and that they're alive and well in Israel. My father said that the Germans would have to kill his family before he would let them kill our Jewish guest. And another family actually said it. Our home, first God. God is our home. Second, our guests. Third, our family, in that order. They would literally lay their lives down for a guest. Even guests, let me give you one, even an enemy. Give you a story. This is a true story. One member of a family killed a member of this other family. What have I done? What's going on? All right, can you hear me? Yeah. Hello? Yeah, okay. So this family that had to avenge by killing someone in their family. One night during the Nazi occupation, there was a banging on the door, and someone from this other family, I said, "Help me, I'm running, the Nazis are chasing me down, I'm a communist. I know where I am, but help me." They took this person in, sheltered him, ultimately brought him to the border of Albania and said, if you come back, we'll kill you. That's Besa. Give you another example of Besa. As I said, that in 1939, Italy occupied Albania. And needless to say, that the partisans and the royalists, and Democrats as well, were fighting against the fascist occupiers. In 1943, Italy capitulated to the Allies, at which point the Nazis moved in and started to kill Italian soldiers. Approximately 30,000 Italian soldiers, former occupiers, were then sheltered by the Albanian people under their Besa. Hard to believe that it's true. This guy's great. I am proud of my life as a partisan, a communist, and a Muslim. And he saw no problem being a Muslim and a communist. And he didn't give a damn. The family that they were rescuing, he brought him downtown Tirana. No one's going to touch that with me. No one did. And he was quite a guy. We even had him with Professor Katani, who was one of our guides. We had them singing the Internationale, you know. Anyway, okay. Incidentally, some of these pictures are not only from Albania, but from Kosovo as well. And Kosovo is 90% ethnic Albanian, and so much is not lost in Kosovo and Serbian Jews. My daily prayer is a prayer of peace, friendship, and brotherhood. The Quran says to give thanks to a beggar with your right hand and to do it quietly. God will know. I'm the fourth member of my family to go on a Hajj to Mecca. With me is one of my grandchildren. Children are the flowers of life. This was an interesting story. These are two brothers under the communists. They lost their home. I believe they were in prison as well, or the father was in prison for 40 years, as I recall. And then after the communist regime fell, they were able to get their home back. But under the Nazis, they took in this family, and there was, and the whole area where they lived knew that they were sheltering a Jewish family, and nobody spoke up to the Nazis at all. Our grandparents were devout Muslims. My brother and I are secular Shiite Muslims. We celebrate the Muslim holidays. My father gave us an order. If there's a knock on the door, take responsibility. And this is where there will be quite a bit of a story in the full documentary. It's a hell of a story. We met him, again, I can't, the names are awful. And he was showing us these books. He says, we sheltered, and I was told by my father, we sheltered this family, mother, father, husband, wife, and a 10-year-old boy. His name is Iran. And they left, and they gave to my father these books, because these Hebrew books, I don't know what they are, and promised to return after the war. And they never came back. And he said, I have no way of finding them. I've never been out of Albania. I have no money to do it, to find them. We took that responsibility. We didn't know. And this is part of the movie. This is part of the movie. We went hired investigators to go back to where they came from, Bulgaria, and like serendipitous. I don't know how it can be explained, but one member of our foundation, her sister was entertaining a young soldier from Israel, Israeli soldier, and we asked him, you know, this is their name. It was in the book. Can you help us? Within 24 hours, they found them in Israel. Not only did they find them in Israel, they had changed their name in immigrating to Israel in 1948. We found them. We then contacted Aaron, who was then, you know, back then was 10, now he's in his high 70s, I guess. He hung the phone. Called again, he hung the phone. Yad Vashem called him, he hung the phone. Didn't want to know. We finally got hold of his son, and his son convinced his father to meet with this son whose parents, his father, and sheltered them and kept his books. We brought him to Israel with the books and gave them to Aaron, and it's a very touching, and you can't program this. I doubt if any there'll be a dry eye in the audience when one sees this reunion of these books, 65 years returned to their rightful owner. It's wonderful. It really is wonderful. When we walked into this house, we met the son, and we saw, you know, on a couch there was covers, and under the covers, all of a sudden, it was his mother. She looked like she was half dead. But she did remember, and we propped her up a bit. We took this picture, and she told us a bit about what happened in Berat as well. There was a Jewish mother and young girl, baby girl, the same age as her son, baby boy. She had no milk, and the Jewish